Okay, so today we're going to cover two things. We're going to cover basically module two, which is learning skills. And we'll also talk about learning backlog. Then I wanted to cover some of the reading lists. And yeah, I think those are the three things. Um, so this in some ways is the most practical part, or this is where we connect to the practical part. If you guys remember this thing here, you guys remember this idea, outcome process work systems? Yeah, this part ring any bell for anyone?
Yes, sir.
Right. So till now we've been focusing a lot on work systems. And the question is, how does this connect to process, right? Like, how does working on all this like execution system and all of this like random things that we're doing, how do they connect to the process layer, right? And so that's essentially this module here, which is learning skills. Right, so that's what we'll be talking about today. So like the meta thing of how to learn skills, how do we kind of prioritize and make sure that we learn skills through our lives, and what does it look like to be able to do that effectively. So that's what we'll talk a little bit about today. And then also what are some resources that we have at Hive to like make that possible and easy. um okay, so basically there's like a four steps here, I think. uh the first step is like finding who you want to learn from. The second one is learn implicit knowledge. The fourth step is gain tacit knowledge, which includes like practice. And then the fifth step, I think, is like basically sharing what you've learned, which will accomplish two things. One is that it'll force you to have round out all the edges in your thinking and make sure that you understand the concept clearly enough to explain it to someone else, and also to demonstrate to other people that you know how to do that thing. So if you guys sit and learn like whatever, you may be the best JavaScript programmers in the world, but if people don't know that, then it's not practically useful for you, right? It's great to be like, oh, I know this really well, but in order for it to be useful to you, other people need to know that you have the skill and how you implement it and your creativity in implementing it. And so, yeah, those are the three kind of high level steps in my mind uh, to learn skills. So find who you want to learn from, and this is very very general. It's very high level. Okay, this is not specified to engineering or AI or anything like that. This can literally be for just about any kind of discipline or field. We've tried to keep it really really abstract. So the first thing is find people you want to work from, learn from. Um, and so this really kind of depends on what you want to learn and what style of thing you like learning. Okay. So let me show you maybe some quick examples of people. And okay, actually, yeah, I want to show you one more thing. There are these books on Kitab Nama. It's a series of three books. Um, and I really, really like them. I think they again in a very abstract and high level way do a really good job of explaining kind of what the idea is here. So this is called Steal Like an Artist. It's written, it's a book that's written kind of for artists, uh, but really I think it applies to kind of yeah. So it's about like it's kind of aimed at creative people, but I think it works really well, kind of for any skill that you want to learn. Okay, and the first idea is basically like you need to like go and find inspiration out there in the world somewhere. Um, and that no idea is really truly original, but they're all kind of composed of different ideas that you have. So nothing is original. Just like your parents make up your genetics, um, you need to go and find the people whose work you like and whose work you want to replicate, right? So uh, so this is, I think, a really, really cool chapter. And so the idea is go and find the people whose work you really like. Okay. Um, for me, I can't remember where it is now, but there's a few people who I really, really like. And the way that I became kind of somewhat decent at the work that I do is by going and finding them and then like consuming everything about them. So Paul Graham, you may have heard me bring up a few times. I love the way he thinks about work. I love the way he writes. Um, there's one guy called Shreyas Doshi. He is a product kind of person, and so he used to tweet. He was mostly on Twitter earlier, and now he has some courses and things. But I learned so much about product from him. And then there's a guy called Marty Kagan, and he is also a product guy. He has written a few books, and yeah, his kind of product book is where I started. And then basically, like once you find people you like, you will go and be able to find other people. But once you find someone you like, you can like digest their entire like body of work. You just get so much, and you get to follow like how they learned, and all of that. um in engineering, I can't remember actually. There was one series, it's so long ago, it's been like quite a while. But I for one when I was doing my like programming boot camp and learning how to program, I made this like natural language NLP like um thing about analyzing like the language sentiment analysis. That was my thing. So and there was this guy, I forget his name, he used to do all of his stuff in uh um it's really long ago, but it was basically this YouTube channel. And so I just went and consumed like everything that he had um you know um about NLP, and that was kind of really helpful. And yeah, so just like finding people who you really like, and then just learning from them, because once you start like enjoying their work, it's really easy for you to engage, and they just communicate in a way that you know and understand. And yeah, so that's the first thing. uh know things, try things, start copying. Yeah, I think, I don't know, did you guys do this when you start programming? First you would just like watch some person building a project and you would just copy them. um
Yes, sir, I did that.
right? So I did the same thing, and I think a lot of people do that. So the idea is, yeah, just like find the people whose work you like and literally just start copying them, because that's how you start learning, right? Write the book, use your hands. Okay, this maybe doesn't apply so much. Side projects and hobbies are important, totally true, right? Like just having this curiosity, and just like being like a little bit of a hacker. I used to think like, especially the engineering, the one of the biggest predictors of success was just like how much you like sitting at a computer and just like playing with code, right? And so work is going to give you some stuff to do, but just like doing side projects and just like being curious about things on their own and just like building stuff that no one's forcing you to do. um yeah, that's really, really nice. uh do good work and share it with people. Yeah, so he talks about sharing and do it together. What is this? This is the best idea ever. Oh, this is harder than I thought. It's gonna take some work. It sucks, it's boring. It'll be good. Yeah. So stuff goes up and down. uh, Connect with kind of people who share your curiosities. You don't have to like only now connect with people who are in your city or geographic area. So one thing I would really encourage you guys to do is go and hang out. Just go and hang out here, just read the comments, just like hang out in the space. For programmers, this is the best thing I've ever found for uh, just like a digital space to like meet other programmers. It's really smart people on here, really accomplished people on here. It's very geeky. Just go hang out here. Yeah, I think when I was learning how to program, my brother was like, just like if you just like start enjoying hacking out, like hanging out and enjoying hacker news, like you're halfway there to becoming a programmer. Right. open source 3D rent. So people like show their projects. People are like actively building this. You can go and like talk to them about, hey, I saw your project and this seems really cool, right? Startup studio, fast plot lib, okay. Right, you'll just see what people are working and hacking on. And I think the really nice thing about Hacker News is there's just a bunch of like genuinely very curious and very involved people who are there. Like no one does this unless they're like super into it and they're like actively thinking about work and kind of, so yeah, just go and like hang out here, just see what people are up to. It's very fun and very geeky. Like if you just look at the comments are really highly moderated. It's really, really good. This just go hang out on Hacker News, honestly. Um, just go hang out on Hacker News. And you'll meet a lot of people here. Man, just like if you go there and like be part of the community and things like, yeah, you'll be able to get work and things also because a lot of these people are like SF based and they work in really cool companies. Right? Like this is the kind of stuff they're showing off, right? And they're not doing it. This is not like they're not trying to market it like, I mean, it does obviously do marketing, but this is not what's that site where people launch? What's that called? You guys remember? Anyone know that site? Product Hunt, right? Product Hunt. Have you guys ever known Product Hunt? Yes, no?
No, sir.
Okay, so it's this place where people just like launch their things. So you can see, oh, like it'll give you a good flavor of what's going on, what people are working on. Um, yeah, and this is where people come to look for new products. You can see a lot of it is like AI stuff now, right? Ooh, what is this? Oh, okay, cool. Anyway, so yeah, but this is not Product Hunt. So this is a little more authentic. It's a little more geeky and engineery. Right? It's really fun stuff. And this is how I got into it. You just like just hanging out here, you just learn kind of what's going on. Just like in the comments, there's a lot of stuff. Like, look at this. Who cares about this? Right? It's only on this side that you'll find this. So yeah, going and hanging out with people and going and hanging out in places where um, you know uh, people are and just like talking to people, engaging with people is really great. Uh, yeah, be nice. Write fan letters. This is a really, yeah, cool thing. It's just like write to people whose work you really enjoy. This used to be a like big thing, which I think people are doing less now. Yeah, this is slightly more generic advice. So this is not like, uh, yeah, keep a logbook, choose what to leave out, and then there's a bunch of books here. So this is more geared towards like actual artists. So you might have to like change it a little bit. But the basic ideas I think I really like and I love the way they're presented. So I'd really encourage you guys. It's a very short read. It'll probably take you like half an hour to read it. But this idea of like steal like go and find people whose work you like and be inspired by them and then go and consume that work. If you think about problem solving, one of the big stages of that is also inspiration, right? And so if you think about this whole thing, like if you think about applying design thinking to this problem of how do I become a good learner, the inspiration stage is where it'll fit in where, oh, go and find other people who are doing good work that you like, that you might like doing, and just go and copy them and see how that goes, right? Does that make sense? So,
Yes, sir.
so it fits into that design thing. All of this stuff like just like fits together in some way later that you'll see. Okay. So this is that book, and then the other book is called Sharing Your Work, which I don't think we have on Kitabnama. But the idea is basically like I want to show it to you guys. Um, you guys know how to add books on Kitabnama? Oh, it's here. Okay. So this is the second book, and it's basically the idea is how do you get yourself noticed and discovered? And so this is we're skipping forward a few steps, but basically, the idea here is like go find like a group of people who are working on things you care about. Um, think process, not product. So take people behind the scenes, show them what you're doing, how you're working on things, how you're thinking about things. This is something that's really cool. There was this guy. Uh, what was his name? Yeah, the the something ones. I'll find it in a second. But basically, he was this design person. And what I loved about his YouTube videos is that it's called the crazy ones, I think, or something like that. He used to like show exactly how he works through a design problem. So he'd like give the thing from a client and then he'd basically take you through step by step of how he did it. And it was so informative and so interesting because I'd only ever seen the outcome of design. Right? You see the nice, like whatever, oh, somebody's made like a nice web page, like designed a nice experience. It's called the crazy ones, man, I think. Hilton Marriott, man. Okay. At some point, I will find him and I'll show you the video. But basically, he does a really good job of showing you how he does the thing. Okay. Which is why I always want to encourage you guys to like record videos of you actually working and show people how you're working, like give them that level of insight. So think about like share the process also. Don't just share the final outcome because it doesn't tell the whole story. Be a documentarian of what you do. Um, right? Share something small every day. This is really cool. Basically, like the idea here is like build like a audience, right? And share what you're working on, share what you're curious about. It'll help you kind of yeah, tell good stories. Structure is everything. Talk about yourself at parties. Teach what you know. Yeah. Okay. So the idea of this book is basically like share stuff, which is one of the steps we'll talk about in a minute. Okay. Uh, so the first step is like find the people you like. Yeah, involve finding a person whose work in the field you really like, study everything there is to know about that thinker. Then basically you want to climb that tree, right? Go and find people that that thinker liked and understand about them, and just keep doing this, right? And you'll build this like knowledge tree. And it's like if I had to sit down and do it, I haven't done this yet, but I could like map out my knowledge tree fairly well, and I'll show you actually in a second what that looks like. But these are the people who'll inspire you and these are the people whose work you learn from, and in some ways your choice of who, like, you will relate to different a different set of people than anyone else, and your unique selection is what will make you unique, right? Does that make sense? Does this idea make sense, or like go find people whose work you like and learn from them in general?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now you found someone whose work you like. Okay, go and learn everything about them. Go find videos, tree books, and I'll talk a little bit about what tree books are in a sec. Generally, like just go and understand and find everything they've ever written or shared, and yeah, do that, right? And so this is basically when you learn something. There's two things. One is like you learning. Let's say you guys know how to ride a bike, cycle, not a bike,
Yes, sir.
cycle
Yes,
chalani.
sir.
Okay. So initially,
Bike well.
yeah, initially someone is telling you, oh, this is the brake, these are the pedals, right? This is the bell. If you're going too fast, like do this, right? There's some basic setup, right, of information that you need that is possible to convey verbally, right?
Yes.
So that's what we call implicit knowledge. Okay, this is basically stuff that you can like talk about and explain to someone. The next part is tacit knowledge. Okay, tacit knowledge is actually like the experience that you get of doing that thing. So it doesn't matter how long I talk to you about riding a bicycle. until you've actually done it a few times and you know what it feels like to balance it, you can't say just because I've watched or I've talked to somebody about riding a bike for like 3 days that I know how to ride a cycle, right? At some point, you actually have to do it. And this like muscle memory, this combination of things that you get from actually doing the thing is called tacit knowledge. Okay. So it's not enough just to like um it's not enough just to like watch videos and see how people are doing it. Because I used to do that all the time. Like when I was coding, I just like watch the person do it, and it's like, oh, okay, now I know. But that's not enough. You have to sit and copy them do it, right? Like you have to actually try and run the code. That's when you realize what kind of errors you make, and you have to do the thing yourself. And so that's kind of this tacit knowledge piece. Okay, you actually have to do the thing. There's one intermediate step here, which is you can watch your people like, yeah, do specific things, but we can kind of skip over that. But the next thing is you actually start doing things. Um, and this is where you guys will start like doing programming, make your own side projects, potentially apply the tools you've learned to Kitabnama or to your actual work. But whatever you want to learn, like you actually have to do the thing as well. Okay. And then the last thing is share what you've learned, which is, go and like Sahil put together this video of this thing that he made, right? That website that he made. So you have to go and tell people, hey, I made this thing. And that does a few things. It'll allow people to like um, understand what you've done and also like for people to point out stuff, especially if you're on the cutting edge, right? Right now, you're like doing stuff that's a fairly solved problem. If you're like, writing some site made on JavaScript, people aren't going to be like, hey, like actually, Sahil, you've like understood some concept. Or they may be like, hey, like you haven't applied this correctly, or you could have used this kind of tool or that kind of tool. Right. Once you have people who are engaging with the kind of work you're producing, you'll get that kind of feedback. Um, if you ever get on the cutting edge, you need that thing, right? Like people put out research papers. Um, to like advance the field, and then people will read those papers and then tell them, hey, like my paper fits in this, or there's this other paper that talks about this thing happening the other way. And so in general, like long term, like when you want to learn, sharing what you've learned is actually a really big part of that, right? Because that'll both engage other people in it, it'll give you some kind of impetus to keep going, and it'll like enrich your process because other people will then be able to give feedback to it. Right? Okay. So that's the theoretical, like high level thing. Okay. So four-ish steps, right? So find the people you like to learn from, learn everything there is to know academically, then start doing that thing. And then as you're doing all of this stuff, like share what you're doing, right? Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, there's one, how do you do this? Right? There's a bunch of stuff to do here. This could potentially take like a fairly long amount of time in your life. And so, like, how do you create the time to do this? How do you make sure that you're holding yourself accountable? How do you know that you're meeting your learning goals? All of that stuff. The way that I recommend you do that is now that you're set up with the execution system, you add a role as a learner, and essentially you like allocate time every week to spending some amount of time learning and reading. Okay. And for that, one thing that I really like doing is having a learning backlog. Um, and so the idea is whenever you're like, oh, this is something I'd like to learn, just like throw it on your backlog. And then in the time that you've allocated to learning, you can pick that stuff up and do it. Yeah, again, this thing is not super well written yet. But the idea is this, right? One thing is like, and then you can be really intentional about how you do this, right? So you want eventually kind of well-rounded skills of things that you can do. Obviously, like for you guys, probably right now, like programming and that kind of stuff is like on the front. There's eventually in your whole life there'll be other things that you want to do as well, but what you want to do is just like maintain a backlog of the things that you want to do and uh create a role and allocate time every week to like just do to learning. And so yeah, does that make sense? allocate some specific amount of time and then have a backlog. It's just like a development backlog. You guys know what development backlog looks like. You have like a Kanban board and you have a bunch of tasks that you have to do. And then as you do each one, then you move on to the next one. You guys know what a Kanban board is? Familiar with that idea?
Sir.
Yeah. So same thing with your learning, right? You want to make sure that you're learning all the time. So just like you have like a Kanban board and some amount of time that you work on programming tasks, what you can do is have a learning backlog and then some amount of time that you allocate towards learning. And yeah. So there's two more things I want to talk about. One thing is just some resources that I found really useful. And the other thing was what the next actual steps are for you guys. And so we don't want this just to be an academic exercise. I want to like give you like stuff that you can actually do. Okay. So the first thing that I want to share with you guys is this reading list. This is basically a list of all the resources that I have really liked. So as I've done this and gone through and found people whose work I like and kind of understood things about them, this is my list. And so maybe let's talk about engineering first. So Clean Code is a really, really great book. Yeah, it just talks about, it's a very practical application of how to keep your code kind of well organized, work on repos, like act against what's that word? What's it called? In a system where there's more and more kind of inefficiency and entropy, right? Head first design patterns, really like this book. Um, if you want to be like yeah, I could do a little thing about talking about each of these books. But basically here, do you guys know what design patterns are? Ever heard of design patterns? Sunil, design patterns, ever heard of them? Know what the concept is? I lost you guys. I shall wait here.
Sir, design and patterns, I really don't know, but is it like designing the structural concept of anything?
Good guess. It's close. So design patterns are essentially you'll have some problems in software that keep repeating. Okay. Uh, you'll have the same problem again and again and again in a bunch of different places. And design patterns are kind of ways to solve that problem at a kind of abstract way that you'll use again and again. Okay. So inheritance, for example, is that a design pattern? But wow, I'm blanking. I haven't read this book in a while. But yeah, basically things like how do you make stuff pluggable? For that, there's the strategy part. Okay, you want to take a quick look at this book?
Kind of pseudo algorithm to sort
Yeah,
out things.
exactly. That's a really nice way to put it. A pseudo algorithm to solve problems, right? And so there are a bunch of design patterns. They show up all over in programming, and once you understand them, you start seeing them everywhere. And a lot of times you can just understand like a lot of things at a much higher level because you understand what the strategy they've used to like solve certain problems is. And even like the difference between languages and frameworks is in some ways just like, oh, we solve this problem in this way, and these other people solve this problem in this way. And so you'll be able to like understand just everything at a much higher level, and you'll also be able to communicate with other engineers at a much higher level. You're like, oh, just throw a decorator on that, or just delegate that to someone else. And yeah, so it'll make it much easier for you to kind of talk at a high level about things and just understand things at a high level as well. So this is really, really fun. It's kind of like, yeah, geeky, but it all is. What else do we have in engineering? Uh, some of these are mine, some of these are not mine. Git and source control. I'm just a really big fan of Git because in every company I went, Git was such a huge problem. And basically, only the directors could like really like there were only like one or two people who really understood Git that everybody would like go to when stuff really became a problem. And so I spent like some amount of time understanding it in a little more depth. Yeah, this good parts of JavaScript. This was really funny because my CTO did not like JavaScript, and then he told me this book. He gave me this book, and I was like, "Oh, like I thought you didn't like JavaScript. Why are you giving me this book?" And then he comes back with a book that is this thick, and it's about, oh, this is about JavaScript, and good parts of JavaScript is like this much. But this is also a really fun book. It just takes you under the hood of JavaScript, which I think is still like this really, really great language. But this is my list, right? And so you don't need to do this list. What I would say is like find this list on your own. There's also this thing about the types of non-fiction books. I don't know if I guys showed you guys that. That uh, so there's different kind of non-fiction books. Not all non-fiction books are created equal. There's tree books, leaf books, and narrative non-fiction books. Um, but yeah, some other stuff there like Paul Graham, just like fantastic. He does all of this great work. So these are like mostly books and videos. This is where I was hoping you guys could put like the stuff that you like, so we can like make a bigger list. There's some Asia, like some YouTube channels I like. This is not a very updated list. Um, this is TV shows and movies, which I think are very inspiring. This is the engineering reading list. This didn't come from me. And then there's actually newsletters. Do you guys read any newsletters? Any newsletters you follow? Yes, no? Newsletters?
No, sir.
Okay. Let me show you quickly.
Don't ask.
So newsletters have become this like new thing, basically. Okay. A lot of people who are like working and who are kind of uh yeah, just very interested in working. Not everybody will write a book, but most of them will write newsletters. And so here are a few that I personally like. First, like this is for growth. So this stuff may not kind of be interesting for you, but this is a guy who I found. He runs this like growth lab, and he writes these like weekly newsletters. And yeah, and it's oh, ironically, this is about newsletters. And so he just does a really good job. It's like a small bite size kind of thing. This lady, she's like a venture capitalist. I think she has her own fund now. And yeah, so she just talks about, oh, these are the guys who are raising, this is what's happening. Oh, this guy's still around. Uh, and yeah, right? So it's very current eventy. It's very kind of cutting edge, and people normally talk about stuff that's happening right now. I love Lenny's newsletter. Um, this was like, yeah, there's even a whole Slack community, and he talks a lot about product and growth, a little bit less about engineering. This guy is sales. Uh, Austin Kleon is this artist kind of person. Right, James Clear. Have you guys heard of James Clear? I think Sahil, you're reading his book, right? So, yeah, this common core guy is like a real geek, and I love it. Andrew Chen, he used to be at A16Z, and yeah, he wrote a book called book, right? Yeah, this cold start problem, which I read. I was working on a marketplace product once, and so I read this. But he has a newsletter, you know, and they're just talking about what's happening on the ground right now. And this is like these guys will mostly be in SF and in Silicon Valley. I think that's where this is bigger. Even in India, people now have newsletters. It's catching up here, but newsletters are really good way to like keep connected and understand what people are working on. So would really highly recommend that you find kind of newsletters for like let's go and ask GPT, right? Give me an example of something that someone wants to learn. Rashmi, anything on your mind? What you want to learn? Okay. Uh, cool. We have 10 minutes left. We're going to do an exercise now. Uh, I want one person to volunteer, and what we're going to do is we're going to figure out something that you want to learn, and we're going to figure out how you might put this whole idea together and what that would look like. Okay. Because right now, again, like this is a very meta process, but we're learning how to learn. So right now we've done academic knowledge, right? I've just like talked at you. This doesn't, this is not equal to now Sahil and Rashmi and Sunil know how to learn or are any
Yes,
better
sir.
at it, right? So let's put it into practice. Let's get some tacit practice. So yeah, anybody want to volunteer for this? I mean, Sahil is on with his camera on and mic off, so I'm guessing it's going to be you. Uh,
Yes, sir.
okay, cool. Give me something you want to learn.
Um, at this moment, I would say LLMs.
LLMs. Okay, cool. So what's the first step?
Uh, get the basics done.
Hmm?
I mean, find someone who is good at LLM.
Find people to
Watch,
LLM.
uh,
Fine. Great.
watch their videos, how they're doing it. Copy their work, learn it.
Yeah. So let's do step by step. Okay. So what we're going to do right now is going to make a plan for the next 2, 3 weeks, where you're going to learn kind of something about LLMs. Okay. So anything specific about LLMs you want to learn or just generally?
Um, I don't know. I don't know about the roadmap right now. So let's just start and see where it goes.
Yeah, I've heard about this Hugging Face. I mean, I'm just going on one thing right now, but yeah.
Yes, it's an API works with the local LLMs. I'm sorry, Sam. Keep
It's okay. Go
switching
ahead.
off my
Yeah.
cameras. I'm a little sick.
Yeah. I thought, yeah. Maybe better. क्या हो गया यार? Hello. Do you know what depth first search and breadth first search are?
Um, I'm not remembering it right now.
Rashmi?
I learned what basically not in my mind right now.
Rashmi?
Uh, Sir, I think it has to do something with the binary search and the I don't remember it very clearly.
All right. Cool, guys. You guys, sometimes I'm a bit like, I'm just like, you guys spend so much time doing, I'm a little like surprised at how much time you guys spend doing DSA and these questions. Anyway, so depth first search is when you're like traversing a tree to find some kind of node in it. If you go all the way down like a root structure until the very end, like basically you go down like let's say 10 levels and then you come back and then you like go down like this. That's depth first search. Breadth first search is you go and like search all of the second level, then the third level, and the fourth level.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Right?
But I know this, but I'm not sure about that because I was just
Okay. You guys will hopefully implement it at some point, but yeah, there's depth first search and breadth first search. Okay. So basically in breadth first search, okay, one second. I think this is important enough that let's just take a quick look at it. Uh there was a nice video, man. Uh
Breadth first search versus depth first search for graphs. Suppose we were given this graph and we were doing a BFS from node 1. So we'll pick one of its neighbors, which is 2, but we need to prioritize breadth.
hmm. Okay. In breadth first, you'll go and first like take a quick look at everything that's under the root node. Okay. and then you'll go and take everything in layer 2, and then in layer 3, and then in layer 4. Okay. If you do depth first search, you'll go to 1, then you'll go here. Then you'll go and see everything that's under this, right? Then you'll come back here. Then you'll go to 5. Then you'll go and see everything that's under this. Okay. So you'll fully explore the tree under the node that you're currently at before you move on to the next node. So basically, you could spend like years looking under 1 and not get to 2, right? But in this case, you'll first go 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. Here you'll do 1, 4, 5, 2, 6, 3, 7. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you're looking for people to learn from, right? Now, let's say Sahil, coming back to your example, you've got a bunch of like, she's given you 10 things, 9 things. Okay. Don't do a depth first search. Okay. When you're looking for resources, do a breadth first search. Even when you're looking for engineering answers, do a breadth first search. Like go and take a quick look at many people to get an idea of what's going on rather than spending like 2 weeks just like reading this first thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Sahil, let's do a quick breadth first search here. Do any of these kind of descriptions make more sense to you than others? So this Andre, uh, great for learning, deep learning fundamentals, transformers, practical AI applications, visual explanation of transformers in NLP, neural network. Okay, I think what you're looking for is like a high level thing, right?
Yes, sir.
Uh, Normally you'd have to go and do a bunch of research, but now it's just absurd that you can just do it with GPT. Do you guys, what speed do you watch YouTube at?
So 1.5x.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think one of the biggest, coolest things that I can do is I can process, like I normally watch at 2x, and then if stuff confuses me or something, then I'll like slow it down or I'll like flip back. But yeah, just watching YouTube videos at 2x, you can consume, you get so much. So in general, like yeah, don't sit and watch I don't know, let's say this long talk. This talk is like 42 minutes. So you don't have to go and like sit through and watch every minute. Just like be, you know, watch it on higher speed, skip the parts that just like, yeah, don't feel like you have to go by exactly the pace. Okay, so now Sahil, you have these 4 things, right?
Yes, sir.
So what's the next step?
I think the second one, J. Almer, was looking good.
Okay, cool. So I'll give you like I'll just send you all of these, but this now becomes like your first line. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let's 1 second. Let's go to this. Okay, let's open Sahil. So you have a learning backlog. It's not here. Template. You have like a learning tracker thing here, so I'm just going to create one for you. This we can remove, right? Okay. So topic, resources. So go give these a watch. One thing that's really crucial is now you allocate time on your calendar, right?
Yes, sir.
To do learning. So in your roles and goals, like, and in your main, like medium to long term goals, just add like, oh, learning LLM, right? And so now that it's on this, as you're planning your week, um, just allocate time, either daily or whatever, however you want to do it, whatever works for you, but
Yes.
allocate time every week for you to do this. Because if you don't allocate time, like it's not going to happen just magically, right? You may like your curiosity may drive you, but the idea is that you want to have a system to do this, right? You're not relying on your week to week inspiration that kind of throughout your career or whatever, you're like making sure that learning and investing in your time and kind of like, growth is something that you're doing. So that's going to be one key step. Right. Then you have these things to go through. Once you've done this, what you're going to want to do is try and make some little project or do something that you've understood from this, right? Maybe at a high level, it's less applicable, but try to like, there are some things that are like completely only intellectual. Uh, in that case, maybe there's not a lot to do. But in that case, in either case, what I'll say is then the last step is to like put together some way to share what you've learned, right? And just like summarize, hey, like this is what I started with. So what you could do is you could even use this video as like a starting point, like, oh, this is where we started, right? I want to learn about LLMs. This is what I did. I went and searched this on GPT, right? These are the 4 things I got. This is the rabbit hole it took me down. This is either how I applied it or didn't apply it, depending on whether you go practical or kind of purely theoretical. At the end of this flow, the last step is for you to share something online, okay, about how you learned it, what you learned, how you applied it, something like that, right? And invite others to either like follow along the journey or tell you how you could have done it better, or if there's something that you missed. Okay.
Yes.
uh, so that's the last step of like learning something, is like sharing something about it. You want to do it as quickly as possible. Or like, share it like semi frequently. You don't want to wait 10 years when, you've learned everything about AI and then you like write some big thing. Like build that as a part of your like learning process. It's like, oh, I've learned like a little bit now. There's something that I've discovered and there's something I can share or talk about. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm gonna add. Okay, I don't know what this is, but I'm allowing whoever wanted this permission. Um, so what I'm gonna add as your like, just like as a task is like share a video or share something on LinkedIn about your LLM learning journey. Okay.
Yes.
So just to recap, I think that's everything. Yeah. Any questions? Anything to ask at this point?
Mm, Nothing, I guess.
Was this helpful at all, or was this the stuff you already knew and you're like, why are we doing this?
Um, I think most of the stuff we already knew, but it's kind of scattered information. We
Hmm.
need a path. I think it is helping. That's why this thing is helping, because बेसिकली बहुत सारी चीजें सोच सकते थे कि वो मैं ये कर लेता हूँ, वो कर लेता हूँ, ये कर लेता हूँ, लेकिन अभी ये सारी चीजें पता होने के बाद एक पाथ मिल जाता है कि हाँ अब ये करना है, अब ये करना है, अब ये करना है, तो इसमें हेल्पफुल होता है.
Hmm. Nice. Yeah, I think the idea is like wrap a system around it,
Yes, sir.
and then you can always improve that system. Then you're very intentional. I have this is how I do it, right? This is what's worked for me in the past. And this is how maybe I want to change it based on what I'm learning, rather than, oh, let me just haphazardly do it kind of in whatever way strikes me or makes sense at the moment. Right?
Yes,
Obviously you guys know how to do this, but the idea is like if you can wrap a system around it, you can just keep
yes,
doing
sir.
it in a consistent and improving way. Yeah, Rashmi, any thoughts, questions, anything to say or add?
Not now, sir.
Okay, makes sense, found it somewhat useful, or like okay. So summarize, there's a way to learn skills which I have articulated incomplete for now, but to the best extent that I know possible in this module, right? It's really, really simple. Find the people you want to learn from, learn everything there is to know academically, go and find other people that they learned, like, go and find the people who they recommend you learn from, and just like build a good kind of intellectual understanding. Put that then into practice. So either watch them do the thing, right? So let's say, yeah, just like watching people do design, watching people do engineering, much like we guys do. It's just like watch people like code something together, on YouTube, like watch the process, watch them actually encounter problems and solve them. Then try to do that yourself, and then eventually like share the things that you learned, right? So that you get feedback and you kind of get greater context, and that you are forced to think about the thing in a fairly comprehensive way, because you can't really share, or it's hard to share something when you have a very superficial level understanding of it, right? So those are the four things. Incorporate, like that's the actual way that you do it. The inputs or the systems around this are your execution system. So keep learner as one of your goals. As you're doing your weekly planning kind of on an ongoing basis, create time to allocate to learning and make sure that you're doing this on a consistent basis. There'll be times in your career when you can't, right? And let's say you're doing some really intense project or you have exams, like that's not a time where you'll have like time to do this. But remember, this is the one of the most important zone two activities. You guys know what zone two, what I mean by zone two now? We talked about zone two last time, right? Okay, Rashmi, I'm gonna take that mute, unmute as a yes. So this is one of the most important zone two activities. So it's really important we keep investing in this. It's important but not urgent. No one's gonna like force you or push you to learn, but this is what will have the highest kind of long-term impact on your career. And so you need that execution system. Make learner one of your goals. Keep allocating time to this. On the other side, there is keep a learning tracker. So have a list of things that you want to learn, so whenever you get to that time, it's not like, oh, I don't know what I want to learn. And also, there's going to be periods when you're super motivated and excited to learn things, and periods when you're not. So you want to make sure that when you are, you capture that. So you have a learning backlog of, oh, these are the things I want to learn, and you're kind of proactively looking for ways to do that. Yeah, I think that's kind of what it was. Yeah. So next step, Sahil and Rashmi. Like, does this kind of make sense? Can you put together a little plan about something that you want to learn and try this system? Up to
So
that.
I said sorry, sir.
Just try this system in some way, right? The same that way that you did with Sahil is like, oh, I want to learn this. I found some things. Like, just try to run this system, right? If you go back to like learning how to build systems, um,
Oh, yes, sir. I am following the all the system that you like suggested now, talking to the GPT, asking for the like events or paths about the people. I'm also connected with some few people who are in this ML path, but I was not talking to them. I was not interacting with them. So now this is going to be my next thing to do, like interacting with them, asking for the suggestions or for the like help.
fantastic,
This is
fantastic.
I'm good.
What I want to see at the end of this process is you guys sharing something on like LinkedIn or Hacker News or wherever. Like, put together some documentation of what you learned, how you learned it, what you understood, what, whatever. Like something about what you learned. I want you to put it together and share it.
Eager to do that, sir.
Yeah. That is the last, like, that is one complete cycle of you learning something. It ends with you talking about that thing and sharing what you learned and like telling other people that you learned that stuff. Okay. So that's the last step. That's the end of one cycle. So that's the outcome that I want you guys to aim for is, what can I like basically like think about that as you're doing all of this stuff, right? Because not enough to learn. You want to tell people all the cool stuff that you learned, all the time you put in, all the effort you put in, right? Cool. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, that's the end goal right now. We'll talk more about, I mean, I put it on Sahil's thing. Maybe I'll put it on your thing as well. But yeah, aim to like share something about what you've learned. And then that will be stage one complete of learning skills. Yeah, cool. Okay. I think that's it.